Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition today, as always, we're on 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and joining us also on local community television in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, in the village of Franklin, on Comcast Channel 15 at AT&T Channel 99, is Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Also today, as always, we are on the web, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link, or join us by viewing from the small player on the top right of your screen on civiccentertv.com, where you can also find us on demand, civiccentertv.com/megacast. And today, we're on our own Facebook pages, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm, that all via Facebook Live. And as always, joining me from her home studio today is Ronnie Dahl. Ronnie.
There you are. I wasn't hearing you for a minute there, Tyler. I'm like, I see you.
Huh, that's weird.
But I don't hear you. How are you today?
I am doing just fine. Obviously, you can hear me now, so that's good. I was wondering what the lag there was for a second, because we tested before the show and heard each other fine. But you know what? We deal with this stuff and go forward. But so far, a good start to today. How about you, Ronnie?
Hey, guess what?
Oh, no.
Today is 420 Day.
It is. It's Snoop Dogg's birthday. That's how I call it.
Taco Tuesday.
It's the stars are aligning for Snoop Dogg, for Woody Harrelson, for Willie Nelson. We can go down the whole list, Ronnie.
And unfortunately, on this day of celebration for all the weed smokers out there, we are also going to be getting snow, Tyler.
Yes,
snow.
yes, the kind that falls from the sky. Don't go confusing that, people. I know it's a weird day here in Michigan. The stars have aligned. It's a little bit too much going perfectly in some senses. So Mother Nature's like, you know what? I'm throwing you a curveball. It's opening day again. We're sending you snow.
Right, and with that too, it's not just a dusting of snow. Here in our area, in the West Bloomfield Kego area, it looks like we may only get maybe an inch, but down towards the border of Ohio, they could get up to 3 inches of snow, and everything was just blooming, all the trees and tulips. Mother Nature. I'm telling you. I know, it's wild. Mother Nature keeps throwing us these curveballs, and it's nice and warm, gradually getting warmer throughout the week. Last week, and then they're like, no, this week I'm starting you off nice and cold. I'm going to snow on Tuesday, and then we're going to gradually get warmer from there and a little sunnier. So, we'll get you back there. But I want you to remember, I make the rules here. I'm Mother Nature. Don't go expecting spring and summer so quickly, Michiganders. Yeah, so everyone, that has all their flowers starting to bloom in their yards, you're going to have to cover them up tonight if you want them to survive.
Yes, definitely. And cover them up, because it's going to get cold, and probably at the very least will frost over as we get into those snowier portions of the day. Protect your plants. It's still early. If you haven't put your plants outside yet, don't put them outside. And if you have put them outside and you can repot them and put them inside for a day and put them in a window where there's good sunlight, definitely a good idea if you have that chance today before the snows come in.
Yeah, our tree on the side of the house, it was just starting to bloom. It only blooms like once a year for about 3 or 4 days. And it's a beautiful tree when it blooms, and then it just goes back to, green leaves after that. But we were still looking forward to it. And now the snow is coming, so it's going to disrupt Mother Nature's cycle, which just isn't right. But I will say the one thing that is out right now, Tyler, walking the dog, we get up usually around 6, and I take her out on the trail. We go out on the trail and we look over, 2 huge deer right at the base of our house, at the entrance from the trail, West Bloomfield Trail, just checking us out, staring, having a little breakfast, eats. They don't even run away from us anymore. The dog doesn't even bark at them.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. That's what really surprises me, is that everything I've heard about Trixie, I would think Trixie Dixie Wonder Dog, of course, is who we're talking about, would go running after, or at least be aggressively barking at this weird creature just standing and eating plants in the front yard. But no, perfectly fine apparently, right?
Yeah, she just sits down and checks them out like, hey friend, how's it going?
Oh, that's nice of her.
Well, now
true.
when it's a bunny or something of that nature, then she wants to chase it, or a squirrel. But it is still always nice to start the day off with Mother Nature paying a visit to your backyard. But again, the warning to the deer, that is your boundary. Do not come into my yard and eat my hydrangea this year once they start blooming. Then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah, no, Trixie might not chase you off, but Ronnie will, so watch out.
I know, exactly. You know, this weather, you kind of understand why so many people are traveling right now. You know, most of the spring breaks are pretty much over, but we now know a lot of schools went remote, so families are continuing to travel. But the State Department, Tyler, I don't know if you saw this, they are issuing travel warnings amid the COVID-19 risk. So the U.S. State Department announced plans to expand travel advisories, urging U.S. citizens to stay home as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to pose the unprecedented risk around the globe. So the updated travel guidelines are intended to curb visits to about 80% of the countries worldwide, which are currently experiencing dramatic spikes in cases. That's according to the State Department. So the new guidance is expected to be released later this week. The United States has confirmed more cases than any other country in the world. Following up behind, we have India, Brazil, France, Russia, UK, Turkey, Italy, Spain, and Germany rounding out the top 10 spots. Meanwhile, global deaths have surpassed 3 million people, according to the latest data. So more than a year into this pandemic, and new spikes are occurring, not just here in the state of Michigan, but really globally as well. And they continue to urge people, do not travel.
Yeah, if you don't need to be traveling, that's what that urgency is coming from, because in the case of international travel in particular, of course, the United States doesn't want people coming in from other countries and potentially bringing COVID-19, especially if there's other variants that have formed that we have not figured out yet, into the United States. And also on the other end, we don't want to be bringing those to other nations, as we are still a global effort, because this is a pandemic, because this is something that's worldwide, trying to thwart COVID-19 and bring this to an end. Continuing the spread between countries, even between states, is of course a very big problem, and especially with the spikes that we're having in the Midwest here in Michigan and in other places throughout the United States. Limiting travel internationally as much as possible and limiting travel within the state is something that our leaders continue to urge as we go forward through this portion of the pandemic.
Yeah. And think about it, you know, for us, especially here, it's that border crossing with Canada. I can't wait for it to be lifted. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there are some amazing wineries just across the border into Canada that we usually try to do the trip once a year over there to go. It's like basically a few mile stretch of all these various wineries to visit. But yeah, the border for us has been closed except for essential traffic, but since the beginning of this pandemic.
Yeah, and Canada's been consistent month by month, really, other than at the beginning of the pandemic when they had suspensions of non-essential travel across the border for several months. They have continuously extended that moratorium on non-essential travel as time's gone on because of the situation in the United States, whether it was more severe as it's been now and it has been in previous spikes, or even in lulls in coronavirus cases here when Canada has had its own specific issues. And despite both of these countries being in relatively consistent communication for commerce and for international travel and tourism, I don't see that border opening up for a very long time, especially because while the United States and its vaccination efforts have been relatively strong so far and are continuing to progress forward, Canada has been having its fair share of struggles as well. And so they're trying to do what they can to protect the people of Canada from international communication of COVID-19.
So I know one of the things that is happening right now, the city of Detroit just announced yesterday, Tyler, too, that they are opening up some sites for walk-up vaccine shots because a lot of people, especially with the news of the J&J, have been more hesitant to get the vaccines. So they're trying to make it as easy for people as possible. And there are going to be 4 locations throughout the city of Detroit that you can do a walk-in appointment. So instead of, picking up the phone, making an appointment, you can just walk up to them. Those start, I believe, today. By far the most well-known location for people here in the suburbs is this TCF center is going to be one of those spots. So really, our elected leaders right now and health officials are trying to encourage as many people as possible to get the vaccine so that we can stop the spread of this virus. It's been more than a year. But while we're talking about travel, the governor, in a little bit of hot water again, she draws fire for out-of-state trip before she was vaccinated. So the governor traveled out of state before she was vaccinated for the coronavirus to visit her father. Her staff has confirmed. MERS News reported on Monday that Whitmer traveled to Florida last month, bringing fresh accusations of hypocrisy from Republicans as the Democratic governor presides over a state with the highest COVID-19 rates in the nation. So in a statement, Whitmer's spokesperson, Bobby Letty, said she left Michigan 3 times in the past 6 months, including a trip to assist her elderly father, who is battling a chronic illness. He did not disclose additional details about Whitmer's travels, but the news agency is reporting that the governor traveled to Florida. Keep in mind, she received her first dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine on the 6th of April. Her office said her father was fully vaccinated and the trip was not paid for by taxpayers. Whitmer was already facing questions over travel after a top aide who is overseeing the state's vaccine plan, vacation in Florida, and the state health department director spent spring break in Alabama while the third wave surged here in Michigan. So Whitmer's health department, though, has recommended against travel multiple occasions, and most recently during the latest COVID-19 surge. So back when it came out about her 2 aides traveling, the governor really kind of defended them, saying she doesn't know what her staff does on their off time. Well, now we know why. And again, no one is saying anything about the governor traveling, but she had 2 opportunities before to mention that she too had traveled, which really I just don't understand why some of these people don't it's going to come out. People are going to find out. Just admit to it, own it, and move on.
And there are certain situations where you do need to travel during this pandemic, and you know, a lot of people will make the complaint that, well, a lot of us haven't been able to see our sick loved ones that are in nursing homes or in other facilities because of restrictions that have been in place either by the state or by these individual facilities throughout this pandemic. Why should you be allowed to do that? Well, her father is in Florida, and she would have the allowance to do so if she was down there and was visiting him. So there is a need there to visit your father during this situation because he's dealing with a chronic illness. Then that's perfectly fine, and that's something that you can bring up and say, listen, this is the situation. This is why I am going to Florida. This is why I have gone to Florida. This is an example of essential travel. It is essential to my father's health, and it's essential to my family that I make that trip to visit my father, make sure he's okay, and come right back. While I'm there, I'm going to continue, despite the regulations in Florida being different from in the state of Michigan, to take all the precautions necessary to prevent myself spreading COVID-19 to others or myself getting COVID-19 from others, and will make that trip as short as possible. That, in that situation, would have made this, if not okay, then at least made this a little more palatable to the people of Michigan than to have hidden it from people when you had opportunities to bring it out, or just to omit it and not say anything about it, have this come out now while you're also saying to the people of Michigan, hey, you shouldn't be traveling, stay home, don't go doing anything spring break related or travel related unless it is absolutely necessary. And again, it's just the omission of these simple details or these simple decisions that really are fairly harmless that have people questioning the governor at this point in time.
And, you know, the thing with this, politics aside, some people are going to say, oh, this is politics. No, put that aside. You wonder what type of message this sends overall about our government, because we are in the debate here and within the state of Michigan about transparency, and this helps fuel that discussion and the mistrust that so many citizens have in our elected leaders. So, you know, you just wish they would be a little bit more open, especially when things start to leak.
Right, and at the very least, provide some details. You don't have to provide every last little detail of it, but just the basics of the situation. I think people are going, I would hope people would be reasonable enough to understand that somebody needs to attend to a family matter, and that requires them to travel because, in this case, her father is down in Florida and is not here in the state of Michigan. And would be more understanding of that if there was some upfront knowledge of that instead of people finding that out after the fact, that it was before she was vaccinated. She went down there while encouraging the people of Michigan not to travel, and then having on top of that 2 of her high-level staffers be making travel that we don't know whether or not it was essential in both cases or not necessarily, but it still is not a good look. Coupled with this new story with the governor's travel to Florida, it doesn't help.
So also making news today, another 25 Michigan workplaces have been cited for COVID-19 violations, according to the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Amongst them, golf course, a dentist's office, Kroger, Blue Cross Blue Shield. MIOSHA announced another batch of the citations and fines. So far, the agency has cited more than 225 businesses for not following COVID-19 rules. Violations include not training employees, not requiring masks, and not alerting other employees when a worker tests positive for the virus. So Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan is included in the latest list of fines. It's one of the first workplaces to get in trouble for making employees work in person when they could be working from home. Other workplaces to be fined include a marijuana dispensary, multiple school districts, a doctor's office, a dentist's office, a golf course, multiple restaurants, tourist attraction, and a Kroger, as well as a mobile home park. If employers fix the problem and agree not to appeal, they only have to pay 50% of the fine. Workplaces have 15 working days to appeal the MIOSHA citations. Employers and employees with questions about COVID-19 workplace policies can call a hotline that has been set up. They can also file a complaint against a workplace by going to michigan.gov/MIOSHA complaint. Employee complaints spurred inspections for 24 of the latest 25 citations. So they are still out there. Another warning to so many businesses: follow the rules.
Yeah, rules are still in place for these businesses. They do need to follow them continuously, and it gets tougher as we get further along in this pandemic because you get a little more relaxed. You start to return back to your regular tendencies as you're not putting as much of an adamant focus on these new regulations and this new way of operating, and so it can be a little easy to slip up. And for companies that may have been more relaxed from the get-go, that can be even more severe, and you end up with these situations. So especially with the varying nature of these fines, from MIOSHA being from simply a golf course and a dentist office to big companies like Kroger and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, it's really across the board. This can happen to any business, and you just got to make sure that you keep up with your employees, keep up with your policies, and make sure that you're following the rules that are in place to keep your employees and the public safe.
So with that as a reminder, you can always find the latest headlines. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. There you'll find the latest information. Also, another good resource for you on that website and that page is at the top of the page. We put direct links to valuable resources, including the CDC, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County. So you can do a little bit of research on your own as well. That's going to wrap it up for the headlines, but we have a good show ahead for you here on this Tuesday. Coming up here in the 10 o'clock hour, next we are going to be speaking with the regional CEO for the Michigan American Red Cross. Sadly, we've had a lot of house fires recently throughout the state of Michigan. We'll be talking to the American Red Cross about their disaster help and their call for action to try to save people's lives from fires. And then also coming up in the 10:40 hour, the power plants. How can they help you throughout this pandemic and beyond? That's coming up next on the
Quitting
Megacast.
smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studio, aka my office, while Mr. Tyler holds things down back at Civic Center TV. We want to always say thank you to Tyler for all of the work that he does to get us on the air each and every day. You turned on the news yesterday, and one of the headlines, sadly, was about an 18-month-old boy who had passed away in a fire on Detroit's east side. It's heartbreaking and it's tragic when these situations happen, and sadly, they happen all too often. But there to always help so many of these families, the American Red Cross. And right now, they have a campaign that they are pushing forward about sounding the alarm to try to save lives. Talk a little bit more about that and so many other things. Let's bring in Mary Lynn Foster. She's the regional CEO for the Michigan region of the American Red Cross. Great to have you with us again. How are you?
I'm great, Ronnie. How are you?
You know, we are all surviving, taking it day by day.
So true for all of us. This past year has just been a challenge for everyone. I was just listening to your last segment, and I think vigilance is the key word.
And we know everyone gets tired, but unfortunately, this virus is not leaving us. And you know what else? Winter's not leaving us. I will say, I came downstairs. I was like, "Why is it so warm in here?" My husband had the heat on 73. But sadly, we do know in the winter months, there typically is an increase in some of the fires here in Michigan because of people trying to find other ways to heat their homes or electrical fires, things of that nature. When you saw the headline yesterday about the little boy who passed away in the fire, your heart must have sank because you're trying to help prevent these situations.
Absolutely, Ronnie. Every time, especially in the case yesterday, that little boy, my heart just sinks. It just really does. And that's why what the American Red Cross does here in Michigan every single day is so critical, even through the pandemic. We've never closed, and every single night we are responding, every single day, every single night, we are responding to home fires.
I think, a lot of people know about the American Red Cross and the blood drives, but they forget about the other side and the other work that you and your team and the volunteers are doing. So how does it work? Do you get a call for help from a local fire department, or do you see it on the news and then dispatch a team?
Well, it's actually both. So we have partnerships with our local fire departments across the region. So often it's through the fire departments and or through social media, through regular media channels that we learn about them. And the Red Cross, we dispatch our volunteers. What a lot of folks don't know is that the mission of the Red Cross is 90% volunteer-led. And it doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. in the afternoon, our volunteers are dispatched and are helping those families who are experiencing a home fire.
Wow, and what dedication from your volunteers. So tell us more about the Sound the Alarm campaign.
All right, so right now we're in the middle of the Sound the Alarm campaign. It looks a little bit different this year during the pandemic, because we're not actually entering homes to install alarms as we have done, well, not last spring either because of the pandemic, but the couple years before. But what we are doing is sounding the alarm and asking everyone to make sure that they are testing their smoked alarms and that they are also pledging to prepare. And what that means is making sure that everyone has a home fire safety escape route. What a lot of people don't know is you just have seconds to escape your home in the case of a fire. And if you have that home safety preparedness plan and no exits, and that everyone in your household is well versed, and that you practice that and have a meeting spot outside, a safe meeting spot, your chances of survival are much better.
Because we know in those moments it can get frantic. So that's why you have to practice, and practice some more.
Absolutely. I mean, just really think about it. All of a sudden, you might be awakened at 2 a.m. in the morning to that piercing sound of your smoke alarm, and you're a little disoriented and you're trying to figure out what's happening, and you have 2 minutes, only 2 minutes to get yourself and your family members and pets out of the home. So you want to make sure that you are well aware, that you recognize it, and especially for children, so that they recognize that sound. Because our research has shown that often that piercing sound of the smoke alarms, children are frightened by it, and understandably so. So what happens when children are frightened is that they go hide. They may hide in a closet, they may hide under their bed, and there's just not time in those precious moments to escape. So it's important that children hear that sound in advance, and that caregivers and family members are practicing that with children and actually testing it and timing it to make sure that you are escaping your household and getting to that safe spot outside. Because Ronnie, every single night we are responding to home fires. Just since during our current fiscal year, over 1,300 home fires. Since July 1st of 2020, we've responded to over 1,300 home fires across the state. You do that math, that's an average of 5.5 every single day.
Wow. And is that here in the state of Michigan?
That is in the state of Michigan. So
That
it just, multiplies exponentially across the country.
That is really a scary number when you think about it. And then, when they do survive, then it's, what do you do next? Because
Right.
in so many cases, you're losing everything. If stuff wasn't burned due to the actual flames, a lot of it is damaged because of the water and the smoke. So then it's that, how do I recover? Where do I go tonight? And, for a lot of people, they escape with just the clothes on their backs.
You're absolutely right, Ronnie. And that's why the American Red Cross responds immediately to home fires. Often we are there when the fire departments are still on site, and we're looking for those family members, because we will immediately go into action, providing, asking questions, making sure that they have a safe place to stay the night and those immediate days following, to make sure that they have clothing, to make sure that they have meals. And then what happens after that, once it starts settling in, oh, my eyeglasses or my contact lens might be in the home that just burned. Oh, what about my prescriptions? My medicine that I need to have. So the Red Cross volunteers are there, and we can provide that guidance. We provide monetary assistance, but first and foremost, we're making sure that immediate needs are met, that you have a safe place to go, that you have food and clothing first and foremost. And then we really transition to the recover and helping every member of that family on their path to recovery and what that may look like for them moving forward.
Mary Lynn Foster with us here on the Megacast. She's the regional CEO for the Michigan region of the American Red Cross. And with that, Mary Lynn, you talked about volunteers. 90% of your workforce comes from the help and the big hearts of volunteers. How has it been throughout the pandemic for you and your team to get enough volunteers?
Well, it's been a challenge, honestly, Ronnie, it has. But first and foremost, this actually happens to be Volunteer Appreciation Week across the nation. So I want to give a huge shout out to all of our volunteers, and with just an extra dose of thanks to all of our volunteers. But a lot of our volunteers are a little more cautious about the pandemic, especially before the vaccine was developed. And so we are in constant need of volunteers. And if any listeners are interested in volunteering, I would encourage them to visit our website to do so. And I assure you, and I promise you, that if you volunteer for the American Red Cross, it will touch your heart like nothing ever has. If you're that person wrapping that warm blanket around someone that has just, or watching their home burn, and providing that hope and comfort to someone, we like to say that hopefully we're the best part of someone's worst day at the American Red Cross when we prevent and alleviate human suffering. And volunteering for fire disasters is just one way.
I've been on the scene so many times, not just fires, but flooding, various situations. And the American Red Cross is always great, always on the scene, taking care of the first responders, as well as they continue to be out in the elements and battle, the need for their assistance. And when we're talking about volunteers, do they have to go through any specific training?
They do. Because we want to make sure that all of our volunteers are well prepared and know what to expect when they do get that call. And there are many different positions. There's just not one general volunteer position. For example, for disaster response, you might become a disaster action team member. And so you would go online and say, gosh, I may be interested in that. And we have great people that will talk with you about what your interests are, because we want you to volunteer in the type of position that you're most interested in. And so we'll help navigate that for you and with you, move you through the system and connect you with the training that you're needed, so that when the need does arise, you can raise your hand and volunteer and you're ready to go.
So Mary Lynn, how is it working with companies? Because I remember meeting some volunteers following one of the hurricanes down south that were from up here in this area, and it was kind of coordinated through their work. They basically almost like a sponsorship where they would allow them to help respond and get trained, but then still pay them. Are those partnerships still going on?
They are, and we're very fortunate. We've got great corporate partnerships, but they have slowed down a little bit, and understandably so, because many corporations are, of course, looking out for the safety of their employees, just as we are. But we are able to still link to our corporate partners and work with them. A lot of the training is happening virtual. Through a virtual means. But for example, CPR, we are still doing in-person training for CPR in our facilities, but of course it's socially distant, very spread apart, following all of the CDC protocols and making it very safe for everyone who participates in any type of in-person training.
So we know the American Red Cross, you are a nonprofit, but this is a challenging year for so many nonprofits when it comes to the area of the budget. How is that looking for you right now?
Well, it has been challenging. Because we are not government funded. And so we are able to execute the mission of the American Red Cross through the generosity of our donors, our corporate donors, our foundations, and people like you and me, who donate personally to the American Red Cross to prevent and alleviate human suffering. So it has been challenging. We're very fortunate because of the work that we do and that we are an essential business and we've never closed throughout the pandemic. The people recognize that. And also, of course, the need for blood is constant. So, we have a lot of volunteers and financial donors and blood donors also continuing to help. But it's through these types of, partnerships with you that we can continue to let people know that we're open. We need you. Please help.
Because it used to be, you would drive down the street and you would always see signs, blood donations today, either at the local church, the local school, the local office building. That's a bit more of a challenge today.
It is, Ronnie, honestly. We're asking blood donors to actually go online and schedule an appointment rather than walking in to make sure that we have the right staff, and that because our blood centers and where we are hosting them are more socially distant apart, we have to have more drives in order to accommodate, but just to help with traffic control and safety of everyone, we're asking everyone to go online is the preferred method and schedule a blood donation appointment. Very easy to do. Put in your zip code and you'll be returned with all of the locations near you.
So are you pretty much still doing them daily, weekly? How is it looking?
Daily. We're hosting blood drives daily.
So it's easy for anyone to be able to find one in their community. Mary Lynn Foster with us here on the Megacast. She's the regional CEO for the Michigan region of the American Red Cross. So it's always great talking to you and your team and everything that you're doing right now. Mary Lynn, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye for the day?
Well, Ronnie, I think we really touched on everything. I would just like to, in summary, say, first of all, thank you to everyone who supports the American Red Cross. There are so many different ways, financially, through blood donations, through volunteering. And while a lot of people, as we were saying, just don't realize the amount of home fires that the Michigan region experiences every single day. And a staggering statistic, since January 1st of this year, just January 1st, in the past few months, we've had nearly 50 fatalities in the Michigan region due to home fires. And those can be prevented. And if everyone would just take the time to check their smoke alarm, have that home preparedness drill and practice it, only have 2 minutes to escape a home fire. Critically important when you experience that.
That is such a frightening number. 50 fatalities since January 1st.
Right.
Wow. So with that, again, for all the parents out there, you hear people talk about it, you hear the firefighters talk about it, but it really requires you to take the time. Mary Lynn, I don't know if you remember when we were little kids having the fire drills in the classroom. I think it was stop, drop, and roll.
Right.
That was like,
stop, drop, and roll. That's right. I remember that, Ronnie.
It was like kind of burned into our heads when we were little kids. But now you think about, some of the kids are on the second floor. Right. Fires burn so differently now because the materials that are used to make so many of the items in our households, the furniture. And so you don't have the time that you once had. So it's so vital to have these plans in place, but also to practice these plans as well. So again, Mary Lynn Foster, she is the regional CEO for the American Red Cross Sound the Alarm campaign. Mary Lynn, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Ronnie. Really appreciate this opportunity. Take care.
You too. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to here in the 10 o'clock hour. We're going to be joined next with Cedar Rose Botanicals, talking about the power of plants. And then, of course, today is 420 Day. For those that don't smoke marijuana, what exactly does that mean? And with us, we're going to have Anqunette Q with us. She is a board member for the Michigan Cannabis Industry, and also talking about some of the legal hurdles around legalized marijuana here in the state of Michigan. That's coming up on the Megacast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home office while Mr. Tyler Keefe holds things down for us back at Civic Center TV, the studios there in West Bloomfield. And as a reminder, we are here live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can always catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Municipal Access, as well as Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also tune us in on your radio dial, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The BIP. And then if for some reason you do miss the show, we do rebroadcast it throughout the day, but you can find previous episodes of the Megacast on our website, civiccentertv.com. Over the past year, the COVID-19 crisis has us all really focused on our health. And for some people, that has them looking at the power of plants. To talk a little bit more about this, let's bring in Sarah Tennent. She's with Cedar Rose Botanicals. Sarah, thank you again for being with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell us more about Cedar Rose.
Yeah, so Cedar Rose Botanicals, I created out of my private practice. I am a Chinese medical provider and herbalist, and these are some of the formulas that I've seen work over the years with my patients for a variety of issues, whether that's menstrual health, immune health, supporting our nervous system, all things to really promote our wellness and well-being.
So with that, the pandemic and COVID-19 has put such an awareness on our health and the crisis, not only here in America, but of course across the country and the globe as well. Are you seeing more people try to turn to some of those Chinese medicines, the old school ways, to address some of these health concerns?
Absolutely. I think if anything, this has taught us is that the real investment in our health makes such a difference. We can't even enjoy our life if we're not feeling great, and supporting our immunity is everything. And plants are so great with this. They evolve with us and evolve with the strength of viruses and different bacteria. So they really provide a holistic and whole body approach to not only treat an illness, but support our health.
So tell us more about your training. What's it take? Because I think about this and there are millions of different plants. How do you know what the right combination is?
Well, Chinese medicine is very fascinating with how they combine herbs. A lot of formulas are actually based on what we call a chief ingredient, and those plants work together. A simple example of that would be ginger and licorice, for example. Those are really bases to a formula that will make something go to all the meridians and affect the whole body. That's something that licorice is great at.
I like ginger and I like licorice, but I don't know about together, right?
Right, two of the more common
so with that,
spices that we know of. But
so with that, Sarah, talk to us about regular people, because, you know, there are some people that are still like, they feel more comfortable going to, you know, a medical doctor, that old school way of thinking. Has this pandemic forced people or allowed people to open up their minds to other ways and other treatments?
You know, this old school way of thinking is actually quite new, especially in comparison to Chinese medicine that has a 5,000-year history. That's something I think that confuses a lot of people, because we're called acupuncturists here in the States, but really Chinese medicine is so much more, including nutrition, body work, herbal medicine. It really is primary care, and it always has been.
So it's treating the whole person.
Exactly. We don't separate things into different pieces. We more acknowledge the patterns that each person has, and all of those symptoms and conditions fall underneath that.
So when you talk about acupuncture, For a lot of us, we just think the needle's going into your body. Ouch, 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 and ouch. But what is the science and what is the reasoning behind it? What does it do?
So most people, when they think of a needle, they're thinking of an injection, something that's either taking a fluid out of the body or putting a medicine in. Our needles are very different. They are all sterile one-time use. They're about as thin as a hair. So you don't even really feel something necessarily all the time. Sometimes you can feel a twitch or warmth in an area, but then most people relax and actually take a nap on the table. So how that's working is it's not only resetting our nervous system by encouraging that electricity that we naturally have in our body. A piece of metal being highly conductive in nature on its own helps to actually change that signaling. They're just like little antennas for our body to clear the traffic a little bit. It's also changing blood flow, dilating or constricting vessels, and really gets our natural endorphins, our pain relieving fighters out there too.
I like that analogy, clearing the traffic. Now, what's the difference between that and cupping?
So cupping is more of like a manual technique, a manual therapy to help to release adhesions on muscles or tightness in the muscles. So very different than acupuncture, really great in combination too.
We're talking with Sarah Tennent. She's with the Cedar Rose Botanicals. How important is this? Everyone is stressed right now. We know people are suffering depression at record numbers, stress, anxiety. Can these alternative medicines help deal with some of the side effects that so many people in our community are going through right now?
Yes, absolutely. They're not only helping with the side effects, but they're helping treat the root cause of that in an individual. So we can't avoid that we're going to have stress in our lives, and certain times more than others, unfortunately. We live in a busy and crazy world with a lot of people and a lot of things going on. So the best we can do for ourselves is really build our resilience by having tools to lean on. So those stressful times don't seem as stressful, and the effects on our body aren't building up over time too.
So how does it work if I'm interested? Do I go into your shop, talk to you about some of the issues I'm experiencing, and then you come up with some type of treatment? Or is there some that are pretty standard for people to help them with anxiety or depression, things of that nature?
Yeah, if someone came into my office, my private practice is in Huntington Woods here called Red Cedar Health, I would do a full assessment on someone and really figure out the best treatment plan overall for their health and if any conditions are currently coming up. But otherwise, I created these box sets so that there would be a little bit more of that pattern and tools to access for everyone, even if they weren't able to come in person with me. So the 4 boxes that we created are pretty much 4 of the main patterns that I see in my office, specifically for menstrual health, even though these products can be used for all genders and all people. There's teas and hot cocos, bath salt mixtures. Yeah.
So they all make us feel good.
They should all make us feel good, right? We all have had a rough year. We should all have a little time to take care of ourselves and move through things a little bit easier. Essential oils are so great for this too, really helping to lift our mood and shift that feeling, even if it's heavy or hyperactive, right? With anxiety, oils are great for that.
So with that, Sarah, right now in the middle of COVID, it's about socially distance, and we have some people that don't want to go to the hospital, don't want to go to the doctor's office. Some don't even want to go eat in a restaurant. How do you address that concern? Because if you're getting acupuncture, you have to touch me.
I definitely am going to get close to people and touch the body, but I've worked in hospitals in China, and even how we deal with things as a healthcare provider is to follow universal precautions. So I'm always wearing a mask, and I have my patients do that as well. And we just thoroughly clean things down and, do the best we can, really monitoring how everyone's doing. But it's so important to have these tools right now so that we don't end up in the hospital. I've had a lot of pregnant moms throughout this time, and doing some house calls as well in the beginning. So really making sure that everyone just has the support they need for unusual time periods for us.
How'd you get started on this path?
Yeah, for me, I think it was probably just what I was supposed to do. I started taking Chinese in middle school. So I took it all through middle school and high school and was just fascinated by the language and the culture. Went there for the first time when I was 12, an 8th grade class trip, pretty amazing, and did psychology and neuroscience in my undergrad, but really wanted to be in healthcare in some form, and then had the opportunity to go and work in a Chinese medicine hospital in Kunming in the Yunnan province. And that kind of started my journey of realizing that this was a thing that I could do, and really needed to be spread that knowledge into the States as well.
That really is fascinating. And, you know, like one class, one trip, how it can spark a new love. And maybe this year through the pandemic, we have so many kids that are getting outside, enjoying nature. So maybe that will help them spark an interest as well.
Absolutely. And kids do great with Chinese medicine as well. Pregnancy and pediatrics is one of my main specialties. So children do really great with oils. They don't even need to be needled. Just a little body work and a little herbal support takes them a long way.
How do you address the people that are still, you know, kind of cynical when it comes around you know, the Chinese medicine and the essential oils, because we do know there has been, you know, there's some backlash when you want to talk about essential oils.
Yeah.
How do you counter that? Because I'm sure you get it every day.
Absolutely. You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So one of my goals is really teaching the safety of oils. And with essential oils, they really are one of the most potent forms of botanical medicine. They're like the blood of the plant. So since they're so easily accessible, we think that we can use them excessively, or maybe just not even realizing how much that is too. So that's definitely a goal of mine, is to teach that proper education. But as far as how acupuncture and Chinese medicine works, my job's pretty easy, because people don't even have to believe it works for it to work. And then they just feel the difference. And that is everything, right? Having that weight off your shoulders, being able to rest a little bit more easily that evening, maybe having some tummy upset that has calmed down. The body does the work for me. I'm just helping to negotiate where that's going, moving the chi.
I'm sure that your office smells amazing every day.
I have been told I am found by scent alone. Good smells, of course. Yes.
Sarah Tennent with us here on the Megacast. She's with Cedar Rose Botanicals, and you're in Huntington Woods. How long have you guys been in business?
I've been in business in this location for 2 years, but my private practice has been in Michigan for 6 years now, actually.
So as a small business owner, how's it been over the past year? We know so many are struggling.
You know, it was a challenge initially, but I chose to shut my practice down very quickly, just to make sure that we had a safe environment. And I was just making sure that my pregnant ladies were doing okay first and foremost. But honestly, I feel extremely blessed. I think that everyone, you know, needs the support of our community, and I tried to get open as soon as I could, so that I would have that space to help everyone through everything.
Sarah Tennent with us here on the Megacast. She's with Cedar Rose Botanicals in Huntington Woods. How do you find your ingredients to come up with some of these mixtures?
We source all of our ingredients from local whenever possible. So I have several farms in the areas that grow things for me. Some things come from my home garden, really high quality sources for all of our essential oils, small artisan batches. Our tinctures and glycerins come from a company called Heron Botanicals. One of my teachers makes fabulous extracts. So high quality and sustainable ingredients are always the most important thing to us. That really brings that high medicinal quality as well.
Sarah, how can people find out more information? Do you offer any type of like virtual classes to try to help educate people?
I don't, but that has been definitely a goal for this year, and will continue to be. I know that the need is so much more, and I want to be able to get this information in as many people's hands as possible.
What advice would you give to someone else thinking about going into the same line of work as you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few really great schools in the U.S. now. Finding an accredited school is the most important. We are nationally certified with NCC AOM. So doing a full 4-year program is the best for everyone, right? Really knowing that theory behind everything and the history.
So would that be in addition to an undergrad degree, or is this in place of it?
Yeah, that would be a master's level education. The school that I went to, which is Bastyr University in Seattle, they actually have a a dual program for people who've had an associate's degree or 2 years of basic education. They can go right in and do a dual bachelor and master's, but finish in the same amount of time still. So that's a great option.
Sarah Tennent with us here on the Megacast. She's with Cedar Rose Botanicals. Sarah, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to share before we say goodbye today?
No, I could just show you a little box here. This is our power box. This is actually how it gets delivered to your house. It's a nice fun book of information. And there's 5 items in each box. So each one has a rub, which is a massage oil, an essential oil roll. Drop is a tincture glycerin mixture that you take internally. Then there's a bath salt mixture with essential oils and either a tea or a hot cocoa mix, depending on the box. So this is a mushroom hot cocoa that has lion's mane and reishi mushrooms to support our immunity.
So you create those right there?
Yeah, I make everything in the shop here.
So it's like you're a chef and a doctor together, all in one.
Well, when you're working with plants and extracting things, it pretty much is like cooking, right? Some of these things are spices that we're familiar with.
What other boxes and how can people get them?
The other boxes are the belly box, the bitch box for our crankiness.
Oh, we like that one. I might need that every day.
Need a little bit of that. And the cramp box for cramping and headaches. So you can find all the products on cedarrosebotanicals.com. My practice here is called Red Cedar Health, redcedar-health.com. That'll give you a lot of information.
Sarah, thank you again for being with us. I learned so much having you on the show. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It was so great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Sarah Tennent with Cedar Rose Botanicals. Check them out. So many interesting things and interesting guests that we have on the show. I will say it. I learn something new every single day. So again, we appreciate your time. Still a lot to get to here in the second hour of the day. When we come back, we'll be speaking and talking all about weed. It is 420 day. Did you know that? That's next on the Megacast.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping. Taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or 2 or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Megacast. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 WBFH. As a reminder, you can always catch us live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. Catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Municipal Access. And also, if you have cable, thank you. A portion of your fee helps support programming such as this. You'll find us channel 15 on Comcast 99 on AT&T. And if you also have one of those old school transistor radios, like my husband still has, you can tune us in on the radio dial, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM, the BEF. Just about another hour left here in the Tuesday edition of the Megacast. Of course, today is April 20th. 420 Day, as it has become known as, a day to celebrate and recognize the power of marijuana. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Anqunette Sarfoh. She is a board member for the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. Q, always great having you on the show.
Always great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Happy 420 Day.
Happy 420, everybody. I even broke out my industrial strength vaporizer in case we do a little show and tell later, but I'm not. I'll puff afterwards.
With that too, it's taken a long time to try to start to remove the stigma around marijuana. And we have so many advocates now that are public about the medical side of marijuana and its benefits. What has this year and this really, this mission, I think you're on a mission right now, been like for you to try to demystify the myths around weed?
Well, it has been a challenging year for everyone. I will start off by saying that. And the people have gone through loss and pain this past year. That being said, it's also been an opportunity for them to look for ways to take care of themselves, to feel better, and to improve their health. And so that being said, people have turned to cannabis in droves to deal with everything from aches and pains to anxiety to depression, a host of things that we're dealing with. And so we in the industry, in the cannabis industry, have noticed that there's been a market increase in people looking at cannabis to see if it fits into their wellness regimen, and wondering if it helps maybe alleviate some bad moods. You had your last guest on, and there's a lot of bitchiness out there. And we have some women who are trying to find ways to get rid of that feeling as well. So this has been a year of tremendous growth in the Michigan cannabis industry, not just Michigan, but all over the country, but Michigan in particular, has seen a dramatic increase in people utilizing cannabis for recreational and medicinal purposes.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Oh, I was just saying onward and upward. Yeah.
So with that, what is the difference, if you can answer this, between marijuana and CBD? Because we see CBD pretty much everywhere now. At the drugstore, at the gas station, someone is selling something with CBD in it.
And I am as well. So I have a CBD line called Culture, Culture. So the difference is, my dog, hopefully my dog's going to start barking. I knew it.
That's okay. Mine, Trixie was at the top of the show. So
okay.
That's okay.
So if you look, let's start with cannabis. So cannabis is the actual plant, and CBD and THC are two components of cannabis. So THC is what we know that gets people high. It has that psychoactive effect. CBD is short for cannabidiol, and that gives you different effects.
It's okay. They're just on neighborhood patrol.
Right. And you know what? So that's, I'm going to mute this because FedEx is here. I'm sorry. 2 seconds.
No, that's okay. So, Tyler, we've gone through this before.
Oh yeah.
Everyone has had their pet Zoom bomb them in some way. Just the other day, we had the lady with her cat walking behind her the entire time. So, no worries here. That's the beautiful thing about where we are. And you know what we love, Q, is I don't feel bad when Trixie goes crazy like that.
Right? My apologies. But yes, so CBD and THC, they are just two components of cannabis. It's one of over 100 components of cannabis. But what you're noticing with CBD is because it is non-psychoactive and it is legal in all 50 states. And that's why, and it has a host of benefits because we have this endocannabinoid system in our bodies. And so these components interact with our bodies know what to do with it. And so that's part of why it works so well for so many different conditions. And so you're seeing it everywhere because it really does help in a myriad of conditions. I would just encourage people to check out the certificate of analysis. If you order CBD online, for example, make sure it's lab tested. You know, my products are lab tested. Most products online should be lab tested. And just FYI, I'm not sure you can get CBD on Amazon. So be careful if you're getting it on Amazon, because I don't know if they sell it on Amazon. But there are lots of companies out there that are great sources of CBD. Again, I'm one of them. But yeah, and that's the reason why you see it everywhere, because it's legal now in all 50 states and it works.
And we've heard stories and read stories, about some parents that are using it for their kids that have seizures. I know that my sister was using it on her dog that had seizures and greatly improved the pet's life as well.
And people as well. I also have a seizure history, and so I use CBD to manage seizures. I would encourage people to let your doctors know about that because, seizures are obviously, can be deadly conditions, and so you want to make sure that your doctor knows what you're doing, and if you're using CBD as an adjunct to your regular treatment, or if you're using it in place of, just let your doctors know about that because they need to know. But yes, CBD has been used successfully, especially in conditions where seizure conditions where traditional conventional medication has been unsuccessful. And even when brain surgery has been unsuccessful, they found that CBD has really been a game changer and has helped improve the lives of people who deal with seizure and epilepsy disorders.
Anqunette Sarfoh with us here on the Megacast. She's a board member for the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, and we know that obviously here in the state of Michigan, marijuana was legalized back in 2018, and right now I think our politicians are starting to get on board because they're seeing the amount of money rolling into their communities through the tax side of marijuana.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and they're noticing that these are businesses that are good neighbors. That are an asset to communities. And so as legalization continues to roll out across the country and as laws get put in place here in Michigan, more and more communities are looking at their neighbors that have these businesses and saying, we're being left out. We're being left out and our communities are hurting because of it. And so we're noticing that more communities are looking to start devising ordinances to make sure that they are allowing these companies into their communities.
So with that, Q, if I can ask you, because it's not easy to get one of these licenses through the state of Michigan, but we do have so many of these more mom and pop little, I don't want to say illegal because, they're trying to operate under the guise of being caregiver. How much of a challenge is that for people such as yourself that you jump through the hoops to get a license, but yet you're competing with kind of this black market at the same time?
Well, we always knew that the black market was going to be a part of the industry. The black market is never going to go away, plain and simple. And so our goal in crafting the ordinance and then making sure that it's implemented correctly is to make sure that taxes stay low. If you are a business owner in the cannabis industry right now and you're in the regulated legal market, it's imperative that we keep taxes low because it's one of the best tools we have in fighting the illicit market. The illicit market is not going away, and we made it so that Now if you're in the illicit market, there's a good chance that you won't go to jail or prison. Instead it's a civil fine for the most part. But if you're doing weight, then maybe there's a different penalty for that. But no, we in the legalization circles, which was also formed by people who are already working and have had businesses in the regulated market, we don't want people to go to jail anymore. And so we know that you're going to have people who are never going to get licensed. You're going to have people who are going to continue to sell cannabis without a license. And we say, just don't arrest them. You can do other things, but we don't want them locked up. And we want to make sure that we are competitive with them. So don't price us out of the market. And they do that by keeping taxes low. Right now, Michigan has one of the lowest tax burdens when it comes to taxing consumers when it comes to cannabis. And we want to make sure it stays that way because we know that is our biggest tool when it comes to fighting the illicit market.
So as more and more states start to legalize marijuana across the country, there is a lot of pressure on the federal government to make it legal on the federal side as well, because it's like it's sending mixed messages, and even within the law enforcement circles, when you have a task force of locals with federal, that can be, a tough issue for them because the locals, it's legal, but on a federal side, it's not. But with that, we know banking, because it is still illegal federally, it can make banking for businesses such as yours a little bit more difficult.
Not just the businesses, but even the people who are involved in the businesses. I've been kicked out of 2 banks, and personal, and not our business accounts. My personal bank accounts have been shut down at 2 banks. One was a credit union. One was a credit union, a local credit union. I love them too, and one was a national bank, and that was my involvement. I did not invest or did not deposit any cannabis funds whatsoever into any of these accounts. It didn't matter. They knew me as a public figure who was advocating for legalization, and so I was involved in the industry. And they sent me a letter and said I can either come and pick up my money or they will send me a check. So yes, it would be wonderful if banks would consider us to be normal law-abiding citizens that actually have state-issued licenses. Remember that. I've been background checked. My license is subject to FOIA. All of my information is out there and it's public. We are an open book when we want to be in this industry because we have to be. We are above transparency. And yet, it's so hard to get banking services. I have a CBD line and it's online only. And it took me over a month to get banking services. And that was after I put up all of my test results and everything. It showed that I have a bank that's not, funneling illegal funds. And that was just for my CBD line. It would be wonderful if the SAFE Act, by the way, if you're into all of this legalization, it's the Safe Banking Act. That's what we in the industry are advocating for, the passage of the SAFE Act. It has passed the House. It passed yesterday, I believe, or day before. Yes, maybe yesterday. And so we're hoping for full Senate passage on that. But no, banking services would be great because right now, we're not subject to, we can't file bankruptcy, for example, if our businesses go kaput. We are not allowed to take out business loans. You have to get outside funding, which comes at usually a higher interest rate. There are a lot. And then of course there's a whole tax structure because if you have a provisioning center, those places are taxed at a 90% effective tax rate because they are taxed as an illegal enterprise. So we still have to pay taxes, but we're taxed at 90% because we're an illegal enterprise federally, but we have to file our taxes even though we're illegal to the feds. So there are a lot of things that we would love to have straightened out on the federal side. But right now, Michigan is chugging along, and hopefully, maybe even we'll have a state bank. Maybe that'll be helpful, because we have to find ways to go around this federal illegality right now. And even if the feds would maybe even just decriminalize it for now, that would be helpful. But to give us banking relief is paramount right now.
So that's fascinating to me. And this is why we have these conversations, because for so many people, they just see the headlines that marijuana is a booming business and how to get into it. But they're not noticing the nuances of what it actually takes to get a business up and running and the legalities around it, and banking being such a big part. And with that, this has been an education, I would imagine, for you as well. Frustrating though, I'd be pulling my hair out.
You know, it's 3 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when I went to Colorado and I spent a week training with a cannabis baker. And I said, you know, should I do this? And she said, just prepare for uncertainty. Just know that you're riding a wave and that they're still writing laws. And so as they're writing laws, you're going to constantly be subjected to change. And if you go in with that mindset and you say, okay, you know what, everything's going to be a challenge. Every day is going to be different. The laws are going to say one thing one day and something else the next. And we're just going to roll with the punches, because at the end of the day, we're on the side of right. At the end of the day, we're advocating for a plant, and we're advocating to get people out of prison who have been locked up because of a plant. And so if you keep your mind on that goal, you tackle the challenges as they come, and you learn from your mistakes, and you wear your bruises as battle scars. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of battle scars after this journey. Anqunette Sarfoh with us here on the Megacast. She's a board member for the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. So she's talking about SAFE, the passage of the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act. We do know a lot of Republican and Democratic governors are getting on board with this to try to push it through. So if you want to support it, please go ahead and reach out to your elected leaders to help show your support for the measure, so that people such as Q can operate legally. With that too, Q, we have to talk a little bit about 420. So I've been going on trying to find the history of 420, and there are a lot of different stories out there.
I'll go with the Waldos, and in California, in Marin County, California, in 1971, a group of high school kids who decided at 420 they were going to get together on the bad side of the school, I guess, and smoke. So it became their thing. And so it's from 50 years ago, it's grown into a national commemoration and celebration of this wonderful plant and all the things that you can do with it.
And do you think it's really starting to change now, though, as more and more states legalize marijuana? 420 has a different celebration today than 5-10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. No, I would say 5 or 10 years ago, it's probably an even bigger party, because it was all all of the old school advocates, I'll say, the ones who were out there in the 70s, campaigning for this for forever. So yeah, this was basically weed Christmas and whatever holiday, weed Christmas, birthday, New Year's Eve, all rolled into one. So, but I think now it's become an opportunity for people to learn more about it. I think my mom is in her 70s, and now if her experience with 420 is totally different from my stepson's at 22. For my mom, she's like, oh well, maybe there are some new products I should try out. Maybe there's a different gummy I should look at. And the 20-year-old was like, blaze me another one. So, but it's good, because I think that with this exposure, we get to dispel the stigma. Every time we talk about 420 and every time we talk about cannabis issues, hopefully it widens some people's perspectives on what they were told before and what they're seeing and realizing for themselves now. And more people are feeling comfortable going into a provisioning center and saying, what do you have that could help me? Especially if you're just trying to just sleep. If you don't even want to smoke or anything like that, but if you just want a good night's sleep, they have something for you. We have something for you.
Well, you have such an interesting journey, because we know that you started this because of your medical health issues, and it's helped you with that. So it's great that they have you as an advocate to really share your story, but also to try to share the other side of the marijuana story, because, I was all in the other camp. To this day, I've never smoked weed, and it's just my thing. I'm like, oh, it smells, but talking with people such as yourself, it really does open the door, and it opens your mind. And, some things are for some people and not for others. But the key is, if you're going to have it legal here in the state of Michigan, because the voters approved it, then you need to do the other steps behind that measure to allow people such as yourself to legally operate some of these businesses. So with that, where can people find your products? Because you're doing edibles now, right?
Correct. I have a CBD line. And so my CBD line is available at cultureclub.com. That's Qulture. So remember, I put the Q in culture. Cultureclub.com. And we also have a monthly educational tea parties. They're free. They're on Zoom. And it's me with a cannabis nurse. And it's an opportunity for people to ask a medical professional anything and everything they want to know about how they can use cannabis for themselves or their loved ones, including their pets. And we always have a conversation with someone who has successfully used cannabis. And so this month's conversation, I'm happy to say, is with former Piston Rick Mahorn. And so he does not smoke either, Ronnie, but he is a fan, and he uses edibles. And so he's a big fan of edibles. He uses them morning and at night. Not throughout the day, but just, once in the morning and once at night. But he talks about his regimen and what works for him. And it's nice of him to share his journey with us. And so, so the last Thursday of every month at cultureclub.com, you can register for our tea parties. They are free. They're sponsored by Select, which is a vape company. You can learn about more vapes as well at our tea parties. And we'd love to see you and come out and hang with us. You can get tea party kits at one of 20 provisioning centers all over Michigan. Those are also on our website if you click on the link to join the tea party. So you'll have the link of all of the culture kit locations, and that includes cannabis flower, which is, bud, and we call it flower, but cannabis, an edible CBD infused tea, my own Motor City brand of tea, and grinder card, and we talk about how you can use it to feel better.
That's great. Q, we have to wrap up here, but I have to tell you, I saw someone on Facebook, they were selling munchie boxes today.
Oh.
I was like, that is smart.
Very smart. I'm sure many munchie boxes will be sold today at various locations.
Well, we always appreciate your time, but we also appreciate you educating us and sharing that education with us and our listeners and our viewers. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. Still a lot to get to in the remainder of the show.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
In times like these, we have to believe in each other.
And we believe that you'll do the right thing
when it comes to stopping the spread of COVID.
Follow the 3 W's.
Wear a mask.
Wash your hands. Watch your distance.
And when it's your turn to get the vaccine,
take your shot.
It all comes down to the golden rule.
Treat others the way you want to be treated.
We're so close, Michigan.
We can do this together.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home office while Mr. Tyler Keefe holds things down for us back at Civic Center TV. You know, before the pandemic, the thought of summer school would have kids cringing. But now a lot of parents are really trying to explore the possibility of summer school simply because it's been a crazy year for our school districts and for our parents and the students as well, as we continue to try to navigate COVID-19 and the crisis that it has impacted our communities. So let's bring in Amy Quinn. She's a K-12 math and science coordinator and the advanced placement coordinator for West Bloomfield Schools. Amy, great to have you with us.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for having me on your show.
I will say, I remember, the talk of going to summer school. It was like, no way. But do you have some kids now that want to go? Because it's just been a nuts year. We can all admit that.
Well, we actually have students that can't wait to go, but also teachers that can't wait to teach. And the way we're looking at it in West Bloomfield is we just have some unfinished learning and we want to keep on going throughout the summer. But we have a really neat summer school planned that really looks at social, emotional learning, innovation, and then strong academics.
So how is it going to work? Is it going to be in person or is it going to be remote?
We have many different options. And we're also looking at it as like a reimagined summer school. So it's not the typical summer school program maybe, people have heard from the past. There are in-person options for levels, kindergarten through all the way through 12th grade. And then we also have some virtual options. And I can tell you a little bit about the programs if you'd like.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's start first with our elementary program. The summer school will be session 1 will be 4 weeks. Session 2 will be the second set of 4 weeks, or students could do the actual full 8 weeks. So we're starting June 21st, and if you go the entire 8 weeks, then that would end August 13th. And it's a half-day program. So from 9 to noon, we have 2 themes for elementary. It's be a Laker detective and be a Laker maker. Then moving on to middle school, we have an option for summer school that's really looking at, again, the social emotional piece, the innovation, and then the strong academics. And that theme is Lakers Take Action. And then for high school, we have a theme called Excel, and then also the traditional summer school, and then credit advancement. So as you can see, a lot of opportunities for families to really think about what would fit best for their schedule and what they need.
So what's been the response from parents? I mean, summer school is not new, but these are new programs as well. So do you anticipate, a higher interest or, and is enrollment kind of capped as well?
We're really opening this to all students, which is great. And then actually registration started yesterday. So we already have registrations rolling in. Registration will be open until May 21st. And what was that second part of the question? I'm sorry.
Is enrollment going to be capped?
Well, right now we're going to do the best we can with, staffing and whatnot. So once we kind of see numbers coming in, we'll see what we need to be doing. But we're really excited about it.
Amy Quinn with us here on the Megacast. She's a K-12 math and science coordinator and advanced placement coordinator for the West Bloomfield Schools. With that, talk to us a little bit about what has this past year been like for you?
Well, I'm so thankful for the team we have at West Bloomfield. And when we look at safety protocols and what we've been able to do, that's how we feel very confident that we can then move on to summer school with the same kind of, safety protocols. We are just taking a day at a time, and we're doing some long-term planning, but then we know we might have to pivot very quickly. So part of my role is I work with teachers, I work with students, and I'm part of the bigger teaching and learning or learning services. So we really, our job is to support teachers and really help them with any of the changes we've had to make this year.
So with that, when you see the numbers surge, because you guys work around the clock to come up with these plans, but then we have like a surge in the numbers, and you have the governor saying, go remote if you can. Does it make your heart stop a little bit? Or are you just so used to it by this time?
We've always had student and staff safety in mind, from the get-go. And so currently West Bloomfield's in a plan, say for elementary, just for example, we have cohorts. So we're small class size, we're not there for lunch, and we've stayed with that. So we have to do the best we can as educators to kind of take a deep breath and really look at, okay, what's best long-term, what's best for right now, and just be ready to change.
So as you're trying to go into the summer school, coming up with these programs, what is the thought process to make it more engagement friendly versus what they do in the regular school year? Because when the sun's shining outdoors, it's 80 degrees. That's where I want to be.
Yes, well, we're going to make sure we have recess. That's for sure, too. We have a great planning team, and the planning team made up of teachers, of counselors. We have our ESL, our special education, and really, we were just thinking big. What would be an amazing opportunity experience? What would we want? And we had everything imaginable on this list. And when I look at our original list and what we've planned, majority of everything is still on there, which is so cool that we were able to really think outside the box and, think about what we could do.
Yeah, because if that was 2 years ago, people would probably say, you're crazy. That's never going to happen.
Right. And so, again, we're going to keep things in mind with safety protocols for students, for staff. But we're really looking at small class size to continue for summer school. When we look at that innovation piece, our district has really worked with 4 C's is what we call it. I'm sure we've talked about that a little bit on this program, but really looking at students as communicators, collaborators, critical thinkers, and contributors. And that is the basis of summer school also. We're going to continue that. So some innovative ideas we have for elementary include Lego robotics for all students, where they reimagine and redesign a playground or obstacle course. We have a lot of game-based, fun things for students planned, scavenger hunts, team building activities, and that social emotional piece that's so important. For middle school, we're going to do something with electives. So students are actually able to have exposure to different electives that will be based on teacher passion and then student interest. So it could be anywhere from the arts, robotics, sports. And then there's also going to be a community service project. And then for high school, they're going to be possibly going to cool places, ropes courses and different things. So again, we've got that strong academic piece and we have very strong resources in West Bloomfield. We're going to continue, but then we've really added some of that neat social, emotional, and innovation.
Amy, I think you guys need to develop a program like that for adults.
Right, exactly. Yes, especially, it's been so stressful, but, that's part of it too, is when things are stressful, how can we incorporate yoga, mindfulness? How do we handle stress? Who can we talk to? And that's something that we're going to incorporate in our summer school for our students and for our staff.
So we have heard a lot about learning loss throughout the pandemic. How will these classes help with that?
Yes, we call it unfinished learning. So it's not that, we've lost. Where a student is at is where a student is at, and we are going to take them to that next level. So we are going to be looking at their most current assessments and trying to not skip a beat so we can just keep going with the academic when we look at reading levels, when we look at math data. So we will have formative assessment, summative assessment, same kind of thing with summer school as we do now. And we're going to kind of catch them where they are now and just keep moving them forward.
But I do like trying to make it more engaging for the students so you can learn and have fun at the same time.
Yes. And, with learning, we want them to relate everything they learn to the real world. And so that's a lot of our activities that we have planned so they can really transfer that learning.
Because I will say, if you were going to tell me, hey, it's a summer school and you get to sit in class for 4 hours and learn about, history and math, I'd be like, maybe I'll pass.
Right. No, we definitely have some fun things planned.
We're talking with Amy Quinn. She's the K through 12 Math and Science Coordinator and the Advanced Placement Coordinator for the West Bloomfield Schools. And with that, Amy, we know that especially for our high school students, it's an unusual year. They are thinking ahead to college. How can some of these electives help them get into college?
Oh, great question. And we're looking at different things, for to really support them on that, whether it's study skills and that type of thing, coping with stress, but even having speakers come in and thinking about careers. That's something that we're going to be doing. Having any kind of college tour, might be virtual. We'll see how it ends up with COVID, but really having them start thinking about and asking questions of different careers and different ideas. So that's all incorporated in our middle school and our high school.
I will say, I think for some of the students, this has kind of been a dry run for them of what college is going to be like as far as studying, because a lot of them have had the freedom, being at home, many alone, and having to schedule and balance that time, just like they would have to do if they were off into college.
It's interesting you said that. We interviewed a panel of high school students, and I was able to be on one of those interview panels, and we asked questions such as that, and that did come up. And the student expressed how great it is that they can kind of balance their time, and that they're understanding the time for academics, and then they have to get to a job or something else going on. And yes, you look at technology and how technology has made it so we can really keep going with learning, with communication, with even just that connection piece is huge. And yes, students are at a different spot than some of us as adults, because technology comes very easily for them. Mm-hmm.
Very much so. I'm always like, I need a 12-year-old to help me with this. Yes. Amy Quinn with us here on the Megacast with West Bloomfield Schools. So Amy, I know you mentioned it before, registration has opened up. It opened yesterday. How can parents and the students, so I would imagine the parents have to sign them up.
Yes, great question. Yes, so on our main website, we have a link, academics, and then a tab that comes out for summer learning. All the information is there, all the links to the registration, a little more about the programs, the dates, the times. Any updated information will be there also. And then we currently hired some instructional deans that will help lead the programs at each site. And they're actually creating a webinar. It's going to be recorded and a Zoom link, just a quick little 5-minute, but just to really help parents understand all the different programs and what it entails. So that's being made this week. And then we also have an email address, summerschool@wbsd.org. If there's any specific questions, parents can reach out there.
Amy, we always appreciate your time. Amy Quinn, she's the K through 12 Math and Science Coordinator for the Advanced Placement Coordinator for the West Bloomfield Schools. Amy, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to share before we say goodbye for the day?
No, I'm just really excited that we could share some of our plans and some of our ideas. And thank you again for having me on your show.
Such fun programs that you have planned for the summer.
Thank you.
I want to be a kid again. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and just about 20 minutes left in the show. And when we come back, we'll be speaking with the Executive Director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. That's next here on the Megacast.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down back at Civic Center TV. As a reminder, we are always here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live. And you can find us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Municipal Access, also on cable. If you have cable, you'll find us channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And we're also live streaming today's edition. Tyler, are we on our Facebook page today?
Yes, we are on our Facebook page today. That's facebook.com/Civic Center TV 15. We're also on the Lakes FM Facebook page as I start to slowly roll away on facebook.com/Lakes FM.
See, and that's what makes us the Megacast. We are in just various platforms to make it easy for you to be able to catch the show, because one thing that we are lucky to do here is have so many interesting people and educating us every single day as we all continue to navigate this COVID-19 crisis. And, we were talking with Anqunette about Weed Day. And while we do kind of laugh and joke about it, we also want to remind people that, you want to make sure you are of the legal age. To talk a little bit about that and so many other things, we're going to bring in Lisa Berkey. She's the executive director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. Lisa, I know we've talked to you various times before, and we always appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me again.
So if we can kind of start off talking about weed, because it is 420 Day. And, you go on social media, there are all these memes. But with that, when it comes to kids, you have a message for them.
Definitely. Recreational marijuana is for adults over the age of 21. And we definitely don't want our kids trying it beforehand. It's extremely dangerous for them.
So I know the Weed Can Wait campaign is underway, but does it make it more difficult with so many students being home a lot more now so than they have been in the past year? So therefore, especially high school students that maybe aren't supervised, and they may have more access to marijuana because it is legal here in the state of Michigan?
I mean, that is possible. I think it's always a difficult situation with our kids, because if the parents approve of it and are using it recreationally or medically, the child in the home, first of all, is getting secondhand smoke, which is dangerous, more dangerous than secondhand cigarette smoke. But they're also seeing the decreased perception of harm. And so they right away think it's a medicine. So if it's a medicine, it's okay for me, I can take it. So I think no matter what, when you're at the home and the message that's coming from your parents, your family, your guardian, if it's being used in the home, they're getting the message that it's okay.
So it really is one of these things for parents. It's their responsibility to have conversations with their kids.
Definitely, just like alcohol. We might have a glass of wine once in a while at night, but we need to make it very clear to our kids that I'm 21, over 21, and I'm being responsible. You're not allowed to have this till the age of 21. It is illegal to drink under the age.
Lisa Berkey with us here on the Megacast. She's the executive director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. What a year this has been for you and your team.
It has. We've definitely had to, like everybody else, come up with ways to do our programming virtually, which I think has been great. Our evening parent programs have been well attended, because I think parents, one, are desperate for information right now, especially in the beginning, how to have your children home all the time and how to handle all this. And in the beginning, when they were trying to be teachers as well as parents. So programming online was definitely beneficial for that. And I think even in the future, post-COVID, I think we would still keep online as an option. You can come to a live program, or you can join us via Zoom, just because we've learned that it's more convenient. we may not be able to want to come out of the house. It's a snowstorm, or it's raining, or it's too dark. Everyone always has excuses, right? And this way, just pop on Zoom and you can learn what we're bringing to you that evening.
So do you find that students are as receptive to the online programming? Because prior to the pandemic, you would go into the schools to try to educate them on the dangers of drugs.
Definitely. I would say that we're doing more programming this year on mental health and how to have coping skills and be resilient. And I'll give you a prime example of how great a program went online. We brought in a child psychologist, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and we did a webinar for our Lakers Online 6th grade students, 7th grade students, and 8th grade students. And she talked to them about various ways of how to cope. And because it was a webinar, nobody could see them. And because it was a webinar, any questions they put into the chat were only seen by Mr. Borders. And then he was able to read them to our child psychologist. And let me tell you, 6th grade went first. The questions were phenomenal. They definitely have issues, and they wanted answers. So part of it makes me very sad that they have all this on them, but part of it makes me also like, we're here to help, and that's what we were doing. So that part makes me feel good. But the questions, even the principal was like, wow, our 6th graders asked amazing questions and we were able to help them. And I don't think that would have happened in person because they don't want to ask in front of their peers. And this way they could be totally anonymous.
Yeah, and so what were some of the questions that they were asking?
Oh, that's bad. I'm not going to be able to tell them to you off the top of my head.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Was
I'm sorry.
Like an underlying theme?
Oh, definitely. That they were very concerned about how to manage being at home all the time, because these are the Lakers Online students, and being at home possibly with someone they don't get along with, or they're not able to communicate to their parents, learning how, definitely to cope through this changing time. And if your parents don't know how to cope, you don't know how to cope. They don't know how to, it's very easy. And I know we've talked about it before, as easy as listening to music or petting your dog or going for a walk. But if parents don't show that as a healthy coping mechanism, then the child may not be aware of how easy it is for them.
Lisa Berkey with us here on the Megacast. She's with the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. With so many kids at home, not only do they have more access to weed if it's in the house, but you also wonder about our prescription drugs. We talk about this over and over and over. And I think prior to COVID, the opioid abuse and crisis was getting a lot of attention. It was making headlines. But those headlines have been overshadowed right now due to COVID-19. Are you worried about an increase of use and abuse by our kids?
Definitely. And I just heard a story from Sheriff Bouchard on the news about opioid abuse here in Oakland County. And he didn't necessarily say with our kids, but overall, Oakland County. So there, we have a DEA Take Back Day is this Saturday. And what's great about DEA Take Back Day is you can empty out your medicine cabinet of unused and expired meds. And that's the safest thing we all can do, is that keep the meds that we're using locked up. And if they're unused and expired, let's get rid of them. And that helps our community as a whole. You might say, I don't have anybody in my house that's going to do that. Well, you never know if your house will be broken into. Or we've also heard of when you have your house up for sale, that people will go into your medicine cabinets. So it's just a real safe way to help our community, is when you have expired medicine or unused, as West Bloomfield residents, you can take it to the police department, West Bloomfield Police Department, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. The only thing they don't accept are liquids and needles. But this coming Saturday, being it's DEA Take Back Day, it's just something we focus on. We always accept them here in West Bloomfield, but we focus and advertise this day more. And Keego Harbor is also going to be accepting them this Saturday as well. And their hours are 10 to 1, and West Bloomfield's are 10 to 2.
I'm glad that you're saying that, because I know that a lot of the police departments, they do close the smaller departments, and so they can't, they wouldn't be open unless you made an appointment to take them back. So that is good to know, because we were looking a few days ago, because we have a bunch of old pet medicine, and you have to remember, medicine is medicine, and you do not want to flush it down the toilet.
Very good point. Actually, 2 points you said. Definitely no flushing, no garbage disposal, because that hurts our water supply. But the pet meds are very, a lot of the meds are the same that people use. So you're right, meds are meds. And if there was a drug addict interested in any meds and you had them in the house for your dog, they'd be after those as well. So what I do is I have like a little bag, and when I get a few prescriptions, I just right away go to the police department. It's something to keep in mind when a lot of times from having your wisdom teeth pulled. You may get the prescription and you may only take 1 or 2, but then you've got this whole bottle. So you definitely want to get rid of them.
And how important is it as well for adults to be proactive? Should they be counting the pills and making sure that what they're using is matched with what is still in the bottle? Because, if it's 1 here, 2 there, it can be hard for them to know whether or not they're disappearing.
Definitely. If they're opioids, yes, I think they should be. They should have them locked up. If you have other people in the house with you, you should keep them away from them, because you may not know if they have a drug problem or they know someone who has a drug problem. Also, people are very smart. As an example, if I know that my friend's son had his wisdom teeth pulled or just had surgery, a drug addict will know that and will try, for example, with wisdom teeth, stop over and bring your friend a milkshake, right? After they had their wisdom teeth out, the bottle's around and they will steal them. So yes, it's very important to not leave them on the table, but to have them locked up. Same thing with grandparents, how they're on the dining room table in a lazy Susan. That is not a safe idea at all.
And it is so common. I'm like, I can see the image in my mind right now. It is so common, especially with, some of the older members of our families, because for them, a lot of them have several medications.
Definitely. I can actually give a personal example. My parents were in their late 80s living in Florida, and they did have someone that was on drugs that lived below them in their condo. And one day he came to the door and he asked them for some Tylenol. And I was so pleased that my father did not let him in, because I know exactly what he would have been doing. He would have either here's an older man, tried to rob him for money, or look in their house for prescription drugs. So you've always got to be cautious.
We're speaking with Lisa Berkey. She's the executive director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. Lisa, I know that you and your team are always hard at work. What other programming do you have coming up?
Well, a couple things. One, we're bringing in some vaping education program to our 9th grade health classes at West Bloomfield High School and Lakers Online. We are also going to be surveying our 7th, 9th, and 11th graders at both the West Bloomfield Middle School, West Bloomfield High School, and Lakers Online, just to find out a little bit more about what they're thinking about drugs and alcohol and mental health. I think right now that's more important than ever, because we need to see what's going on with our youth and be ready for programming for next year. We always survey every other year, but we're implementing this extra one just because we need to know, especially with mental health, what's going on with our youth. We're bringing a vaping program into Our Lady of Refuge, because we'll help the private schools in our areas as well. We have a Narcan training coming up for our JARA group. I know you talked to us about JARA, Jewish Addiction Resource Alliance. That is sometime in June, I believe. The second Tuesday, I think, in June. I'd have to check on the date for sure, but it will be on our website. And as soon as the summer hits, we'll start planning for the fall.
The time, well, some days it seems like it's standing still and we're living Groundhog Days. Other times it seems like it's going by so quickly. If we can dial back just for a second and talk a little bit more about vaping, because it seems like I'm seeing it more and more. And, at first I didn't even know what it was. And I'm an adult, so I wonder, are parents going through that as well? Because you don't smell it like you do cigarettes or weed.
Right, because it smells fruity. Yes, I am sure parents are going through it. Prior to COVID, we were educating our parents as often as possible. And like you said, certain topics were on the news all the time. And vaping was one of them. And now we don't hear about it at all on the news because COVID has taken over. But yes, we do need to continue to educate our parents about vaping, what they're looking for, what a vape looks like, because the vapes look just like a small flash drive, or there's even clothing that you can vape from, like the straw is on the sweatshirt pull string.
What?
Yes. If you Google that, you'll see vaping attire. So yes, parents need to know exactly what the signs and clues are going on. But yes, we're continuing to educate our kids about vaping. In fact, there was a program about a month ago that we were invited to, along with the Birmingham Bloomfield Coalition, and they had the young man who had the double lung transplant talking to about 100 kids about everything that he went through and still going through. He takes a ton of medication. He loved sailing. He will never be able to sail again. How COVID has affected him even more. And I think he's a senior in high school now. So, I mean, it totally changed his life.
And it's so important because I do feel like teenagers and kids, they'll listen to another teenager more so than they will us as adults.
Always. They want to hear from a peer. They don't want to hear from a parent at all.
Well, we hope that he is doing so much better, and such bravery for him to come out and share that story, especially now in the middle of COVID. And we are hearing more alarming, so many younger kids are getting COVID right now.
Yes. And vaping affects their lungs, and we all know COVID affects the lungs, so it's making it much harder on them.
So Lisa Berkey with us here on the Megacast. She's the Executive Director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. Lisa, just about another minute here with you on the programming before we have to say goodbye. How can people find more information, especially our parents? Because I'm like, vaping attire? I feel like a parent really has to be on top of everything today.
They do. Just like when you prep your house for your child to learn to walk, you got to do it at every stage as your child gets older in your house. But our website, www.gwbcoalition.org, has information on alcohol, marijuana, prescription drugs, vaping. It always lists all our programs. And it also has a link to the Alliance of Coalitions for Healthy Communities, which manages 21 coalitions in Oakland County. So then you could see all the coalitions, and they all have a variety of information on their websites, like we do, about vaping or opioids, alcohol, recreational marijuana. And there's a ton out there, but parents definitely need to be on top of it and it's all about prevention.
Well, we always appreciate your time and your knowledge. Lisa Berkey, the Executive Director for the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you.
So with that, again, parents, we know everyone is tired right now, but do a little bit of research on your own because the kids are so much smarter than what we are. So to keep them safe, You need to know what is going on because we know a lot of teens don't want to talk to their parents. So the best thing is to be educated. So again, the Greater West Bloomfield Community Coalition, if you want to learn more about so many of these issues impacting our community right now. That's going to pretty much wrap it up for the Tuesday edition of the Megacast. We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. This is the Megacast.